Hey, what's up everybody? Neil here, and it's my turn to do my top 10 favorite movies of 2023. 2023 was a fantastic year for film. There were so many great movies, especially near the end of the year, which is pretty typical, right? A lot of movies that are pushed for Oscars come out in the last quarter of the year, it seems. So a lot of great movies, American movies, Japanese movies, all sorts of foreign movies out there. Before I start with the top 10 list, and before I start with some honorable mentions as well, I also got to mention there were a handful of movies that got some critical acclaim, and I haven't gotten the chance to see them yet. You can't see them all. You know, I mean, when you're working, I am a video director of live sports broadcasting, or at least I was in 2023. Anyway, I was given that opportunity, and as a director, as a professional editor and camera person, I think my opinion means something. I'm not just a movie fan, but whatever. Even if I was just a movie fan, I'd still make this video. So it's all about the love of movies. So who cares, right? So those movies that I didn't get to see, I've got my laptop here to remind me. So Maestro, Past Lives, getting a lot of critical acclaim for that romance. Anatomy of a Fall is a foreign movie I did not get the chance to see, but looks good. Napoleon, yeah, I'll see it eventually. And May December. May December was a movie that came out of nowhere with Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, and it's getting all this hype, and I'm just like, where did this movie come from? Like, where were the ads for this movie? Did it already go by, or is it not out yet in Canada? I don't know. But either way, didn't get to see those movies, okay? But other than those ones, I saw pretty much everything else I could see this year, including some pretty bad movies. The Marvels was my least favorite superhero film. It was a bad year for superhero movies, let's face it. But moving on to honorable mentions, I'm going to start with a superhero movie that was the best live-action comic book, kind of movie of the year, and that was Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, and or Volume 3, or whatever they call it. James Gunn, fantastic director. I really liked what he did with The Suicide Squad a couple years ago, and this Guardians of the Galaxy 3, well, it had some great moments in it, certainly. It had great effects and a fun little story about Rocket Raccoon's origin, and we finally get Adam Warlock, finally. It was well played by Will Poulter, even if his character is a bit different than the comics. He wasn't involved in the Infinity War, or the Infinity Gauntlet, as it was called in the comics. So it's a bit disappointing as a comic nerd, I guess, but otherwise, the movie was good. It was fun. The High Evolutionary was a pretty cool villain, and it's always the villains that make these movies. The next honorable mention I'm going to go with is a movie that surprised the hell out of me, and that movie is Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I watched this movie at home. I didn't go to the theater for this one. I didn't think it was worth paying for. I was wrong. It was. It would have been worth paying for. It turned out to be a lot of fun. You just have to open your mind and go, okay, never mind any old Dungeons & Dragons movies, or whether or not you like Dungeons & Dragons, who cares about that? This is a fun little medieval fantasy film. And Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez, with a very funny cameo from another very famous actor. You'll see as he shrunk down. Really good time. I thought, watching it. I've seen it twice now at home, and wish I saw it in the theater. So, hey, you can't always judge a book by its cover, am I right? Or a movie by its poster or trailer. I really hated the Led Zeppelin in the trailer, and yet, that turned me off a bit. I was like, oh, a whole lot of love. Oh, geez, But no, it turned out to be a good movie. So, see ya. The next one I'm going to say is Poor Things. Oh my. So this movie's not for everybody. This is like an R-rated Frankenstein meets Barbie. It was kind of like Barbie, honestly. It was, in the sense that we have, a woman who's out in the world and she's doing whatever she wants. She'll do whatever is logical to her, but it's not acceptable within society. She's also a woman brought back from the dead by Willem Dafoe's, Dr. Frankenstein kind of character here. He's all scarred up and stuff. Emma Stone is fantastic as this, brutally naive kind of woman brought back to life. And Mark Ruffalo plays this wonderful, wonderful douchebag in this movie. He's fantastic. I loved Mark Ruffalo. You despise his character, but I loved his performance. He was absolutely fantastic. And I will also go with the last honorable mention for films. I'm going to go with the Iron Claw. Yes, the story of the Von Erichs. If you don't know anything about the Von Erichs, I'd really like to know your opinion of this movie if you went to see it, or if you're planning on seeing it, later on a streaming service or something. Because I'd love to know what people thought about it. It's a sad, tragic movie. It's a family drama about the pressures of being great at something. And, the dad is, Fritz Von Erich, the actor is so good here. But he's he's kind of a bit of a toxic father. He's a bit of a, misogynist in that way. I guess he's a bit of, he just works his sons too hard, it seems. In the film he's portrayed as, he's got favoritism and stuff, and everything. But Kevin Von Erich, who, survived all of this, he is played by Zac Efron, and I think it's Zac Efron's best performance ever, not just because he's got the build, and he can do the moves, thanks to Chavo Guerrero. Excellent work getting the actors ready for their scenes there. But Zac Efron, yeah, best performance from him I've ever seen. I like him, I liked him in Neighbors, I liked him in a bunch of things. Also, there's a couple of famous wrestlers that show up in the movie, and one is Harley Race, and one is Ric Flair, and Harley Race is done perfectly. Ric Flair, not so much, His woo wasn't that great, it's kind of woo, or something like, oh my goodness. No, it's more like a woo, whatever. That's a minor misgiving, but a very fine film, and my final honorable mention. Before I get to the top 10, I gotta mention two performances real quick here that deserve recognition but probably won't get recognition because the movies came out a lot earlier in the year and the movies didn't set the world on fire, though they were okay. I'm going to start with Dave Bautista in Knock at the Cabin, playing this character Leonard, who is trying to convince these two guys and their daughter that that the end of the world is coming. And he's very intense and really, really, really good. It may be Dave Bautista's best performance ever. I mean, we knew you could act, Dave. We just didn't think you were this good, So I would give him like a Golden Globe nomination or something at least. I think he deserves recognition for that excellent performance. And the movie was, it had a very good ending in terms of when you think of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, there's always kind of a twist at the end. The twist was no twist, so I thought that was refreshing to get that from that director. The other quick little mention I gotta say in terms of a performance is Alyssa Sutherland in Evil Dead Rise. She got the demonic spirit, possession thing down. She was great. I mean, the makeup helps, of course, naturally. It's kind of a brutal movie, watching it and seeing people like eat glass and stuff. It's like, but it's not for everyone. And the original Evil Dead trilogy, that is always going to be the best, But I really liked this film, and it's mostly because of the performance from Alyssa Sutherland, who was really, really good as the possessed mother. All right, now getting to the top 10 here, and I'll go through this fairly quickly as I check my laptop for notes here. I don't want to mess it up, so here we go. Number 10, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yes, so anyone that's a Tom Cruise hater but a film lover who loves action movies should still see this movie. I don't know why anybody hates Tom Cruise. I don't care about his personal life. It's got none of my damn business. I don't care about Scientology and all that stuff. All I care about is, does Tom Cruise deliver? And he does. Just like previous year with Top Gun Maverick. Tom Cruise, again, brings us a sequel worthy of going to the box office for, and it really is. It was really worth seeing on the biggest screen possible with the biggest sound. So many great stunts, so much great action, directing, editing, and the cast was phenomenal. Definitely the best cast out of any Mission Impossible film, and I think it's the best MI movie to date, at least since the first one anyway, So, yeah, definitely see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I can't wait for Part 2. Number 9 on my list is The Creator, which was a very interesting sci-fi action-adventure movie. The story has some similar beats to the original Star Wars, A New Hope, the big ship and everything, or the big, thing, the Death Star-like thing at the end of the movie, you know, and a character who's trying to help this synthetic little girl, you know, kind of understand and control her abilities, which is to like control basically all electronics, you know. So it's kind of like using the Force, but I don't know. It may not be that original, but it's not a rip-off or anything like that. It's more of an ode in certain places to Star Wars. And I loved it. I thought the performances were fantastic. I mean, everybody, from the lead down to the, you know, the little girl as well. I mean, everybody was great. Allison Janney is wonderful in this movie as well. You know, she's a tough leader of a commando team and everything. Loved it. Loved the creator. Very, very entertaining. If not that original, but still, good movie. Number 8 is Killers of the Flower Moon. So this is Martin Scorsese's latest film. And the way it was shot, so good. The way it was directed, so good. The editing, fantastic. The acting, oh, brilliant. Robert De Niro basically plays like Satan himself, in other words, like pure evil himself, you know. He's like Emperor Palpatine in this movie. He is, man, he's terrible. He's the worst human being. He may be the worst character, one of the worst characters of the year in terms of what despicable things, you know, he does and orchestrates. Stealing land from Native Americans in a long time ago, but you know, certainly it's kind of disturbing. You know, you know, it's very disturbing. History can be disturbing. The truth hurts. They're killing off all these people that have, you know, have a claim on certain land, certain valuable land. You know, that strikes oil. So it's, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of There Will Be Blood. It's a little bit of, you know, some other movies there, but DiCaprio's great as always. You know, he's a bit torn, he's a bit naive too, but he's also a guy that caves to the pressure of De Niro's character. I thought that Lily Gladstone gave a standout performance here as well. So yeah, definitely check out Killers of the Flower Moon. It's definitely worth watching. I'd say it's worth watching more than once. All these movies on my top 10 list are worth watching more than once. And yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. It's, you know, it's not a pleasant experience certainly at times, but some movies just aren't. You know, Iron Claw, same thing. You know, it's not that fun to watch what happens, but it is so well done that as a film fan, as someone that's worked on a few movies, you know, I mostly work in television, but as someone that understands and appreciates the process, I was very impressed with Killers of the Flower Moon and the way that it was done. Number 7 is Asteroid City. Thanks to some incredible directing, editing, and acting, I loved the look of this film, which is really a story within a story within a story, you know, and it kind of jumps back and forth. And I like that. It's an amazing cast led by Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson, you know, Tom Hanks, and so many others. Jeffrey Wright's really good in the film. But the movie is kind of weird, it's kind of quirky, like you would expect from a typical Wes Anderson film. So it's not for everybody, and I like the fact that it's a little polarizing. You know, some people thought it was kind of dumb, and they didn't care for these characters that are all kind of self-involved, and they're kind of obnoxious, and you know, and whatnot, and they're all kind of disappointed in things and whatnot. But no, I thought it was great. Even the young actors were all great too. So definitely give this movie a chance. I think it's definitely going to be worth your time. Asteroid City, and on to the next one, which is number 6. And number 6 is the incredibly, brilliantly, amazingly shot John Wick 4. So, again, as a camera person, as a director, as an editor, I watched this film and I went, wow, how did they do that? How did they do that scene where Keanu is in the car and he's shooting people and things are happening and there's all these other cars that are coming and crashing and he's got to avoid the cars? Unbelievable. There's a top view shot actually that impressed me the most where John Wick has got to deal with all these people that want to kill him, and there's a bounty hunter with a dog, you know, out there to kill him, but this one shot wonder. It's a top view and it just goes on. It's like one of those classic Scorsese shots like in Goodfellas where the shot just goes and goes. It's a one-take wonder, you know, so don't screw it up, you know. Fantastic. Just brilliant, brilliant stuff here. I think it's the best John Wick movie yet. Keanu is great in the movie. The whole cast is great in the movie. You get Donnie Yen. You get, oh man, you get a great villain in Skarsgård. Is it Peter Skarsgård? I forget his name now. But he was the clown Pennywise in the It Chapter 1 and 2. And he's done some great work, and he's a really good actor. A lot of great talent in that Skarsgård family. Yes, indeed. So, John Wick 4, definitely see it. Is John Wick invincible? Well, I won't spoil it. I won't say what happens at the end of that one. Number 5 is Godzilla -1. So, this was another surprisingly great film this year. You know, some movies, just like Dungeons and Dragons, you look at it and go, I don't know, I want to see this movie, but this Godzilla -1 is a must see for anyone that likes giant monster movies, any kaiju movies like Pacific Rim, you know, or any of the other Godzilla movies, of course. And we've had some good ones over the last 10, 15 years. You know, it's been a long, long time since that 1998 Godzilla. That's the complete opposite of this movie. This movie was fantastic because it made you really care about these characters. You know, a lot of the American Godzilla movies, you're just kind of like, squish that guy, I don't care. We're rooting for the monster in a lot of those movies. This time we're rooting for the humans. This time we're like, oh my god, like, these poor people. You know, they've survived 2 atomic bombs. It's just after World War II in Japan, right? And we get this kamikaze fighter pilot who fails to kill himself, you know, really for nothing, let's face it. You know, you don't blame him for chickening out there. But he feels guilt and shame and all that stuff. But then the next thing you know, he's got this little girl he's got to take care of suddenly, you know, as his adopted little girl. But let's focus on the monster here. The Godzilla is amazing. The visual effects, which were also somewhat done by the director. The visual effects, the editing, the pacing of the film, it's just so good. I just watched this movie. I could watch this movie over and over and over and over and over again. A couple of unrealistic, you know, kind of sci-fi, kind of fantasy elements happen in the film, and you're kind of like, okay, well, it is Godzilla. I mean, it already is a science fiction, fantasy, kind of horror kind of movie. So you can forgive little tiny things that aren't so realistic. But honestly, like, this was one of the best movies of the year, for sure. Incredible direction, incredible visual effects, and I love this Godzilla. This Godzilla was scary. Very scary Godzilla. Great movie. Definitely see it. Number 4 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So, this sequel to the award-winning Into the Spider-Verse was every bit as good as that first film. I thought it was one of the best sequels of the year, and I mean, Mission Impossible and John Wick also had excellent sequels. This movie was just pure art, so fast-paced. I've never seen a movie this fast-paced in my life. It's like, whoa, and then they're moving around. Some older audiences may be lost, you know, at times going, what happened? You know, like, don't look at your phone or nothing, you know, when you're watching this at home or something. It's worth it. It's worth watching over and over, and mainly because of the direction by several directors, and the editing. Animation is beautiful. Acting is great. Jason Schwartzman plays a great villain, the Spot. Yeah, so see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse because it's beautiful. There is one scene where the characters are sad. I won't spoil too much here, but the characters are sad. There's 2 characters talking, and behind one of the characters, the wall is dripping. The paint, let's say, you know, on the walls is crying. There are tears coming down the wall. And I looked at that and I went, I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I mean, we've seen like rain, because, you know, rain is symbolic of sadness and, you know, and whatnot, but I've never seen, like, in an animated film, the walls are dripping with the paint, like the tears from the characters are showing up on the back of the wall and they're coming down. So this movie was pure art, and I loved it. Absolutely loved this sequel. Number 3 is Oppenheimer. Yes, Christopher Nolan's epic. Soon to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. It might win Best Picture. It's really good. It's a long movie that goes by in no time, and that's a tough thing to pull off. You know, there's a few movies this year that were like that, certainly. But this one was, wow, for a drama, it moves like an action movie. It was just bam, 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 bam. Character performances, you know, really, 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 wow, the acting here is fantastic. Cillian Murphy definitely should get some award consideration. Robert Downey Jr. is basically the antagonist of the film, and he's great in this film as well. As is, you know, everybody, like Emily Blunt and, you know, like Matt Damon, and all the people that are in this movie are just excellent. Florence Pugh People like that. It's too good. It's too good. The guy that played Albert Einstein was like, oh my God, that looks just like Albert Einstein. What perfect casting. But beyond the casting, there's scenes in this movie, certain moments, like when they come up to the point where they're going to test the atomic bomb, brilliant. Just brilliant scene. I'd watch it again and again and again, despite its length, So don't be put off by the length. Oh, geez, it's long. Who cares? Like you can watch it in increments at home if you want to. But it's definitely one of the best films of the year, one of the best made movies of the year, especially from the directing and the acting. Number 2 is The Holdovers. That's right. So Paul Giamatti gives probably his best performance of all time. He's a really great actor. He's given us a lot of great roles. However, in this movie, he does something very special. And I'm not just talking about the eye thing. He does this thing with his eye. I don't know how he does that. The magicians will not reveal their tricks, right? Anyway, no, he's fantastic in this movie. He deserves an Oscar, or at least a nomination. And the movie itself, it just looks and feels like the 70s. Like, even the credits look like the 70s, Dominic Sessa, I believe is his name, is this brand new actor to movies. It's his first movie. And he plays this teenager who he really gets like screwed over by his mom, really. He gets left behind. That's why they call it The Holdovers, because there's these students and a couple of faculty members that get stuck at the school, this Barton school, over the holidays. And they wind up connecting. They wind up learning about each other, So, yeah, Giamatti and Sessa and Divine Joy Randolph, I think. I don't know if I butchered her name, but she's fantastic. She's amazing. Please, give this woman an Oscar nomination, because she really deserves it. She plays this tragic mother, but she doesn't go over the top. There's not too much crying. She's very strong at times, and the way that she responds to Giamatti's character and other characters, just so good. Just see the movie. I don't want to talk about it too much. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it was my favorite American live-action movie of the year. Yes. It stays with you. I've seen it twice now in the theater. I don't go to movies twice in the theater, like, ever. It's been a long time since, like Star Wars movies or Lord of the Rings movies where I would go more than once. But this one, it just got me. Set in 1970, perfect cinematography, even though it was all shot digitally, apparently. And yeah, it deserves everything. What else can I say about it? Just go see it. Just watch it. If it's out of theaters by the time you see this video, if you happen to be actually watching this video, thank you. I'd be surprised. Check it out on streaming. Rent it. It's worth buying. I'll buy it on Blu-ray if I can. But yeah, Paul Giamatti. What an actor. What a performance. You want to say what a loser character, but you really feel for him and you really understand, why he is where he is. He's a bit of an intellectual snob, kind of like a Fraser Crane kind of a character that way, but he's also very human and also very lovable too. So he's got that side to him as well. All the students hate him, but the audience winds up loving him because he's just the best. Yeah, he reminds you of that excellent teacher you had, in high school or college or whatever. So, yeah. See The Holdovers, Alexander Payne's masterpiece. I think I gave it like an 8 or an 8.5 at the time. I'm giving it a 10 now because I've seen it twice now. So, sometimes opinions change, sometimes the opinion goes up or down. But I loved The Holdovers. Have I talked enough about it yet? All right, let's move on to number 1. The number 1 movie for me, personally, showed up on a lot of honorable mention lists. I haven't seen it on a lot of top 10 lists, but for me, it's the best movie of the year because it's the movie that made me feel and understand the character's plight, the grief, the malice, the catharsis that this character goes through. And it's The Boy and the Heron, Miyazaki's possibly final masterpiece from Studio Ghibli, or is it Ghibli? I don't know how to pronounce it. Don't care. The point is, it was phenomenal. I saw the subtitled version, mind you. The Japanese actors were excellent. Although the American version does look interesting because it's got Christian Bale and Willem Dafoe and Mark Hamill and Florence Pugh and all these great actors. Robert Pattinson plays the Heron in the American version. So this Heron, who's not really a heron, I don't think I'm giving much away by saying that. He has this voice that's like, blah, 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 you know. To hear Robert Pattinson do that would be very interesting, because he does that kind of same voice in the trailer. But no, this movie was about a little boy who loses his mother in World War II, Japan, and he tries to save her. He feels guilt and shame and PTSD over not saving her. So when the war's over, his life goes to like the relative normal state for most people, except for for him. Everything's changed. Everything's over. Because his dad has remarried, and he married her sister, so he married the boy's aunt, and she's pregnant with the little boy, and he's not happy about that. He's not happy about anything. He's a little curmudgeon in this movie at the beginning, but it's the Heron that shows him the way to a fantastical place. I don't want to give too much away, I don't want to spoil much, but from there, the movie gets magical. It gets extremely creative art-wise. It's so beautiful. I mean, a lot of these movies that Miyazaki has directed, a lot of these movies from the studio, they always blow me away with the animation. Especially when wind is flowing, and we see characters' hair, or their jacket or something. It's like always flying. It does that. It loves that intense kind of animation where the camera will zoom in or zoom out or whatever, and it's the wind that's blowing and stuff. There were emotional moments in this movie that made me laugh, made me cry, made me think, wow, what a great lesson for kids. The original title, I believe, is How Do You Live? And the idea for The Boy and the Heron is that we're showing children and everyone, really, all audiences, how to deal with something that's tragic, something that's just gonna knock you down and turn you into like a grump, for a long time. But you can't be like that the rest of your life. You have to move on, even if it's the loss of your mother, which is the worst case scenario for a lot of people. It's like the worst thing that can happen to a lot of people. Certainly, the loss of a parent, a loved one, it can shatter you. And this boy gets shattered, but he learns. He goes through the cathartic process. He learns that it's just so metaphorical. I don't want to talk anymore about it because I don't want to spoil it. Man, you must see this movie if you're a fan of Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, whatever. I've been a fan since the Castle of Cagliostro. The Lupin series from the early '80s. I freaking love that movie, The Boy and the Heron. So it's unfortunate that some theaters here in Ontario chose not to show The Boy and the Heron or Godzilla -1. I think that maybe the tickets for subtitled movies don't sell very well in certain cities. Not Ottawa, not Toronto, of course. They have every movie. Those cities have all the movies. But some smaller cities in Ottawa, or in Ontario, were like, nah, we're not getting this movie because the tickets don't sell. Now that the hype is there, and there's going to be a lot of awards going around, Boy and the Heron it has to get a nomination for Best Animated Film. It just kind of has to, in my opinion. If Super Mario Brothers gets nominated, which is just an okay movie, no, this deserves it. It should. And certainly Godzilla -1 as well. So those movies could come back. They could come to those theaters, and that would be great to see. So that's all, guys. I guess I'm done blabbing on about my top 10 favorite movies of the year. People might ask, hey, what about Barbie, which was the highest grossing live-action comedy of all time, and everyone seemed to love it, and they were rolling in the aisles in the audience. I had that experience at The Holdovers. I thought The Holdovers was way more funny, and I laughed a lot more than I did during Barbie. I only laughed a few times at Barbie. I liked Ryan Reynolds and Margot Robbie, and everybody was really good in the movie. It was really well directed. I just didn't think it was really, best of the year, but hey, people may disagree with me, who knows. But so now I'm going to go watch all those movies that I mentioned, like Past Lives and things, and all those movies that I didn't get to see. And maybe I'll review them, maybe not. It all depends on, you guys if you care. If you care to watch. If I get at least 50 views, I'll make more videos about movies. But otherwise, if they're not going to get much views, then there's no point, right? Right. All right. So guys, that's it for my video of the top 10 best movies of the year with some honorable mentions. And this is Neil, looking forward to all the movies coming out in 2024, especially Dune Part 2, which was delayed because of the the writer's strike and stuff. So that's highly anticipated, along with several others. It wasn't a great year for comic book movies, but, for superhero movies. But at least we got a couple of good ones in there, Across the Spider-Verse, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was pretty good too. So, anyway. Alright guys, that's all for me. Neil, signing off. And until next time, peace.